What's up, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Game, your source for everything in the world of video games. Now, you can always be a part of our show by going to insidethegame.ca or hitting us up in Discord, where there you can submit your clip and be the highlight of the week. What's coming up on today's episode? It's a hot one. Here it is. It's the rundown. Steve, we did it. We came back to Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I honestly thought we were done, and then Ubisoft announced the Motherland DLC.
The idea of AIs making decisions about people.
You are following this abducted child case, and it leads you into like a super city.
And yeah, we're just here to talk about Halo Infinite, the latest game from 343, and the campaign specifically, the latest entry in Master Chief's journey.
Looks like a great episode, so let's get started as Steve and I head back into a game we never thought we would. Let's get going. Well, Steve, looks like we're stepping back in to the Motherland.
The moment you meet up with Tito at the outcast camp. Good luck, and try not to get killed.
Steve, we did it. We came back to Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I honestly thought we were done, and then Ubisoft announced the Motherland DLC, which is completely free, to be honest. So that's a bonus right there. And I gotta be honest, dude, coming back, when I left initially, I'm like, I'm done. I'm never coming back to this game. You jumped in, you're like, Drew, they fixed a lot of things here. You might want to check it out. I jumped in. Oh man, I am so hooked. It is ridiculous how hooked I became with the Motherland DLC. What a step up. Ubisoft had some rocky points at launch, to the point where it broke me, right? It really did kind of break me. I loved Wildlands. I thought Wildlands was a fantastic game. Breakpoint had so many issues at launch, mid-release, after the release, post-release, this, that, and the other. Man, time goes on, and I guess it kind of heals all wounds, because Motherland is the pivotal point of its return for me. And it gave me that sense of feeling of Wildlands. I think that's the biggest bonus for me, is I thought, dude, this really feels like I'm playing Wildlands once again. This is fantastic. Steve, I'm having a great time, but I do have some complaints we'll get to. But how did you feel about Motherlands?
Well, to be honest with you, I've always loved Ghost Recon Breakpoint. It's one of those ones that you probably see I put a lot of hours into it.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it got to the point now I've done all the missions, and I'm now just going back and picking off like faction missions and just picking up gun parts.
Sure.
Just to sort of get maybe the achievement thing, I don't know. And then when we sort of saw about the Motherland, and I thought, okay, am I going to lose all progress from the first one?
Yeah.
But I love the way you can actually bounce between the two. So I went into Motherland, and I did know, because I read a bit more about it, this big DLC fixed a lot of issues from the base game.
Yep.
And I have to say, it felt like a completely different game. Still the same game, but different. And I actually loved it. It did draw me straight back in.
It's different than the fact that honestly, like, I laugh about it, but dude, it's different because it's polished. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it is for me. Now it's polished. I remember at one point prior to this DLC, when I would zoom in with my drone, all of a sudden the whole building would just pop out of nowhere and pop in. I was like, that wasn't even there. And all of a sudden, boom, there it is. And you zoom back out with your drone, and then it's gone. And I'm like, wow, you gotta be kidding me. And that's kind of where I was like, this is it. I'm done. Like, I don't think I'll ever come back. And then we had the Sam Fisher DLC. I was like, after that, 30 seconds of Sam Fisher? No, I'm out. And then, yeah, Motherland gives me that sense of feeling. What's going on here in the story, though, Steve, I think is one of the biggest things. It's a mystery of what's up with the Russians coming in and the Bodarks are in. Dude, there's a lot going on in this DLC. They basically, in a sense, remade a whole game for the DLC. Island. Yeah, of this island, right? So they have their foundation. I think that's what it is, really. Is that they have their foundation, and they built a new story, fixed all the bugs, and like you said, you can go in and select the Motherland DLC, and it doesn't interfere, right, with the other ones. The Amber one with all the gas that's across the island.
Amber Sky,
was Amber Sky DLC, and then they had other ones you can pick and choose, right? And then you get into this one. They revamped the weapons, the mission structure. The biggest problem with my mission structure scenarios that I'm running into, Steve, is that it's timed. Dude, this is a big island. and they sprawl these checkpoints. So you'll get your mission. Dude, Karen Bowman is back too. There's a highlight for you. Man, what a sultry voice. I just love Karen's voice. It's also a good friend of ours from the show. Check out Jane Perry. She's fantastic. But either way, moving past that is getting back to the mission structure. You get your information from Karen is what you have to do in that region, right? From there, it pops out. Boom, you got this to do, this to do, this to do. Okay, you set off to objective 1. Objective 1 all of a sudden pops up. You now have 3 things you got to take out, but you have 10 minutes to do it. So I got 2 kilometers to go this way. I have 4 kilometers now to go that way, and another 2 to go that way. And if it's in a no-fly zone, you're zipping around from fast travel to fast travel, and that's the irritating part. I failed the mission today because of it was timed. I was making my way over, dude, and you know the island, right? Everybody's patrolling the island, so I got nailed by a patrol, and I didn't have enough time then to get over to where I needed to be because I got nabbed by the patrol moving about, which is a part of the game. That's the experience in a sense. But these structures, to me, a lot of these timed missions don't need to be timed whatsoever.
No, I found what I did was when I sort of got my base camp, I kind of got a vehicle. And it's kind of like speed running. I was taking shortcuts across areas just to get to that point, and then just basically just get in there because you don't have time to pick off the people. You got to get there, get the intel, and get out to the next part or take a photograph. Because that's a new thing I've noticed now is taking pictures of things for intel, which I was pretty cool. I did find it reminded me a bit like the Division, this Motherland, a way of cleaning up areas to liberate the people, kill off the lieutenants, to clear that section up, and then move on to the next one.
Sure.
Because there's 4 parts to each section. And the 4th part is obviously the lieutenant they have to take out. But it could be anything from destroying vehicles or taking a vehicle and dropping off at a certain point. Again, intel downloading off a server or things like that. But it definitely seemed a lot... The whole gameplay was a lot smoother, and like you said, it's a lot polished. I found dismantling weapons was a lot quicker, as well. Now they've tweaked a lot of the stuff, which was I found infuriating or time consuming, because it takes a lot of time to dismantle all those weapons that you don't realise you've collected throughout the game. The other thing as well that they've added is the skill system. What is like because you've now got like the camo.
Yeah, your optical camo is back, which is great to have, right? That was in the original. Now it's back. The enemies themselves have it as well. But dude, you have to go and search these camo points, right? So they're in a loot crate. You get gear. You get your points. You get your camo points to then upgrade the optical camo gear, which is a grind. They did not make that easy. So then I spent half my time just looking at the map to find where the camo crates are so I can go and upgrade my camo. I've almost got tier 1 maxed out. Almost moved on to the second one. Dude, it is a blast. I'm glad to be back. I didn't think I would ever come back to this game. It is definitely one of the highlights and definitely the big surprise coming out of Ubisoft this year.
Yeah, I'm only a little bit concerned is what could they add next, or is this kind of going to be like the end game of once this is done, that's it? Because
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, what else could you add? Because it's still the kind of same principle through the hundreds of hours that you put in. Get from point A to B, take out, clear the whole area, and then sort of move on to the next one. So what they could add, I'll be interested to see on this.
Steve, I think this is a bit of a surprise for both of us. We're glad to be back in and enjoying our time with the Motherland DLC out of Breakpoint. Man, I never thought I'd say that. You gotta be honest. But I'm having a great time, and for me, this DLC fixed everything I was concerned about and then some. It also puts me there with an 8. How about you?
I've always, like we said before, I've always loved this game. I think the tweaks and everything else, it's definitely improved the immersion of the game, which I loved about it. So I'm giving this one a 9.
Nice.
Ghost Recon Motherland free DLC brings a new story and conquest missions to the game. With a lot of bugs and glitches fixed, makes it feel like a new game and finally polished. With a new skill point system and a new optical camo skill to add to your inventory, brings a fresh take on the Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute honor to bring one of the legends of point and click adventures games to Inside the Game. It is my pleasure. Charles Cecil from Revolution Software. Sir, thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much, Drew. What a lovely introduction. I feel very flattered.
I'm very honored. This is, it started so long ago for me. It was Broken Sword back in '96, and it put me on a path of point and click adventure games. And then when I was hit up and asked if I wanted to do an interview with yourself, I couldn't turn it down. So here we are, Charles, again. Thank you for hanging out with us. You are about to launch a new game, though. What's the elevator pitch for Beyond a Steel Sky?
The elevator pitch is that, first of all, do you know what? I'm going to come back to the elevator pitch, but let me give you a little bit around that. So one of the most important things is that you don't need to have played the original game at all. So that's but if you have, then you'll get a lot of the background, you'll get a lot of an explanation. But at the end of the last game, our hero Robert Foster leaves his AI pal Joey in charge of the city that he's just freed from the tyranny of a system called Link. And so the elevator pitch is really what happens when a benign AI is left in charge of a city with the instructions to make people happy. And so the idea is that we're exploring what would have happened. Foster actually goes back into Union City. He finds the Joey that was his friend from 25 years, and he's dealing with the Joey that has over 10 years worked to make people happy. And so it's all about some of the themes of the modern day, the idea of AIs making decisions about people to and in this particular case it is benign, but the definition of what human happiness is, how it can be judged, and how an AI would in turn judge.
Nice. It's already been released on Steam.
Yes.
It was also launched on Apple Arcade. How was it over on Apple Arcade? Does it differ at all from a mobile platform essentially to Steam, and which now is later going to be coming to consoles just a couple days away?
Yeah, I know, it's very exciting. We're just a week or so away. Now, the Apple Arcade, of course, runs from low-end devices all the way up to high-end Macs. Mm-hmm. So there's a hell of a range, and we support the highest end and the lowest end. So obviously on console, across the range of consoles, we support as high as they will go. So yes, the game has been available on Apple Arcade, and Apple have been a fantastic partner. It's been an absolute privilege to be able to work with them. But we're absolutely thrilled now to have the stability of the consoles and to really push stylistically where we can.
Absolutely. Is there a big transition between moving from a mobile platform to a console platform? Is there a lot of extra work?
Yes. Well, there's a lot of extra work between the lowest end devices and the high end. I mean, the modern day iPads are extraordinarily powerful now.
Yeah.
I mean, really, and Apple Arcade will support the whole range of iOS 13 devices. So at the bottom end of iOS 13, particularly those older Apple TVs. The difference between the bottom end technology and the high end technology is massive. So we were already pretty prepared for that range of power and making the most. And obviously, the easy thing to do would just be simply to go for the default and produce everything at the lowest. But that's not what we've done at all. What we've got is we've got a range, particularly of graphic capabilities, between 4K at one end and very simple textures and models at the lowest end.
You strike me as a fine young officer of the Ministry of Well-Being. Would you say that's an accurate description?
You've obviously grown up now with the industry, you see how it's moved. How's that transformed into Beyond a Steel Sky?
Well, I mean, one of the big jobs, of course, is the availability of engines. So with Beyond a Steel Sky, we were able to use the Unreal Engine. Mm-hmm. We have a very, very experienced team of both from an art and a programming perspective. And we felt that the opportunity to create a visual style that would be complementary to Dave Gibbons's artwork was something that was, very attractive to us. I think I'm slightly getting ahead of myself here, aren't I? But if we talk about the original Beneath the Steel Sky, which was published in 1994, and collaborated with somebody who's since become really quite a good friend, Dave Gibbons, terrific collaborator, and Virgin described the game as, the game got very well received, got to number 1, did really well. But Virgin's marketing tag, Virgin was our publisher, I do beg your pardon. Our publisher's marketing tag was an interactive comic, which bore absolutely no relationship to the truth whatsoever. The only thing that was comic book about it was that Dave produced a beautiful comic book that was part of the packaging. But it felt, for Beyond the Steel Sky, 25 years later, it felt that actually this idea of really creating something that, from using the technology of Unreal and the opportunity to use an engine, would give us the power to create a real-time look that was complementary, as I say, to Dave's comic books. And not only was that decision made from an aesthetic perspective, but also when you play an adventure game, probably uniquely, you're spending an awful lot of time looking at the background. And so what we wanted was a background that was crisp and clear, so that you could see the objects that were likely to be of some value. So there were multiple reasons, but I sort of deviated. Sorry about this. I'm not very professional. But the point being that things have changed, and that the tools, the ability to use an engine rather than having to write everything from scratch. Back in 1994, it was easy because we had hardly any memory. We had 32 colors, very little resolution. Yeah. So there wasn't, and then with the move to 3D, things became more and more complex. And the proliferation now of engines particularly led by Unity and Unreal has allowed developers now to do the most extraordinary things, which we couldn't have done 5-6 years ago.
No, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my honor to have an absolute legend with me today. It's Charles Cecil, Revolution Software. Everybody go check out Beyond the Steel Sky.
Thank you so much, Drew. Great to speak to you.
Scott, let's go. We're going beyond a steel sky. Well, Scott, I'm pretty excited, dude. I get to talk about one of my favorite developers. They are back. Revolution Software is back once again. No, we're not talking about Broken Sword. We're talking about the latest title, Beyond a Steel Sky, making its way to console. A year ago, Corey and I were checking this out over on Steam, reviewed it over there, but now we're getting caught up in the world of consoles, and you and I are jumping back in. What did you think of Beyond a Steel Sky?
I was a little bit nervous because I'm not super into point-and-click adventure games. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but you are kind of our expert here on the show, and I heard, mixed reaction to this. So getting in for my own opinion, I actually had a pretty good time, but we're going to get into that further on here. What was your second impression of this game?
My second impression is, I played this already. So it's one of those unique things of, okay, how well... So I took a different perspective, right? Because I already knew the story. I already played the game once. But how does it transition over the world of console? Obviously, using the WASD keys and your mouse are a lot different than how the console and controller works functionally. So to move over to console and have a controller in my hand, dude, it felt like home. Like, it was really, really good. It was smooth like butter. It was no problem whatsoever. Moving through the menus was relatively easy as well. Normally in a point and click adventure game, you're dragging your mouse to, highlight certain areas and things like that. Where here, because you're on the console, you look in that general direction, and it'll kind of pop up an icon there, and then you can hit the A button and interact with it. And that's the biggest thing here. And then you select your dialogue and move on from there. There is a lot of dialogue within the game.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, point and click is definitely its own unique genre, but Revolution Software have been doing it so well for so long that they already know the formula, right? It's engaging. The story, I think, is the highlight, right? It really keeps you engaged.
Oh, yeah.
But there are moments, like you and I were just kind of refreshing ourselves and talking about it last night, that kind of hit you with a bit of a slow pacing at points. Scott, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so you spend a lot of time kind of, well, following an objective of some sort.
Sure.
So that objective gets changed and tweaked over time, so you kind of always are moving forward, and that's fine. But yeah, there's a lot of these challenge areas, these rooms with puzzles perhaps, or just kind of a mysterious next step that you have to discover, and sometimes it takes quite a while to put the pieces together or touch the right object, and then it changes your dialogue options with other people. So it's very much a detective kind of based game, where you might enter an area and you have to, well, how do I get this guy out of the way? And you have to come up with a creative way to do that. And I think it was really good because the challenge is there sometimes. I got stumped a few times. There's one, I'm going to allude to it, there's a cafe moment with music, and that took me quite a while to figure out. But once you do, it's kind of a eureka moment, and on to the next one. That's something that pulled me in for much longer play sessions. It took a little while, but it got me.
Scott, you always look for iterations and improvements and just things to help move the genre forward. And with Beyond a Steel Sky, Foster, the main character, is handed over a scanner, or more or less steals a scanner. But he uses it to solve different puzzles and mechanics, often something you have not seen before, especially in the Broken Sword series. This is a bit of a new step forward for adding into the puzzle mechanic behind the game. Overall, though, Scott, what are your impressions of the story?
Oh, I think it was a really good setting to kind of place out this drama, I suppose, of the storyline. You are following this abducted child case, and it leads you into like a super city. And in that super city, it shows off a lot of the universe. So you are from the Outlands, you're kind of in this rabble camp, and you make it into the city, and there's a lot of these kind of dignitaries around. You get the feeling that there's kind of two classes going on, almost like a Hunger Games scenario, where everybody's just, I love the voice lines they use, just keep a smile on your face. Oh, it's creepy. But it definitely pulled me in, and I want to know more about this universe now. I know this has a prequel to it, and I'm very curious to see how that works. But I want to see more come down from this series in the future, because it's just such a believable world to me, and the storyline brings you through a bunch of different characters, and they're all very memorable, and they all have their own quirks to it. This was a really good venue to kind of put you through a lot of these detective scenarios. So I really like this one. I think I have to round this up with a score, because I'm just about there. Aesthetically, it was satisfying. It has that kind of comic book look to it, but I love it. Really liked it. The world, again, like I said, super believable. Gameplay is quite slow at times, but those moments of challenge really kept me going for more. I am very impressed with this game. It's out of my genre, but I have to give this one an 8. I very much enjoyed it.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm glad we found you a new genre. Welcome to the world of point-and-click adventure games. Obviously, as I said right off the top, done by one of the best, Revolution Software. So I always had high hopes for this one, and to see it now move over to the world of consoles, I'm right there again. It picked me right back up where I left off. It's fantastic. The art style, the gameplay, the dialogue, and the banter between some of your characters is fantastic. Dude, I'm there too. 8 for me as well.
Beyond a Steel Sky is an excellently written and paced mystery adventure. It has memorable characters and challenging progression that makes this a must-have.
Maybe the old woman was right. Maybe demons did stalk the gap. For as it shrieked and thundered around me, the storm brought back my nightmare once more.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to have Steve Vegvari with us today, freelancer over in Toronto, and we're here for one special reason, to talk about Halo Infinite. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting.
I'm glad you could join us. We're talking about none other than the campaign, Steve. Why don't you give everybody a quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and hit us up with some Halo.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Steve Vegvari, freelance writer for the Canadian games industry. I'm seen on Mobile Syrup, iPhone in Canada, Console Creatures, Squad State. And yeah, we're just here to talk about Halo Infinite, the latest game from 343, and the campaign specifically, the latest entry in Master Chief's journey.
If you knew how you were going to die, you knew how you were going to die.
What a journey it was. You and I both wrapped up the campaign, and I think that's fair to say it was probably one of the best campaigns we've seen in a long time coming out of the Halo series. You and I were both kind of gushing over this. What's your overall impression, Steve?
I think this is a proper return to form for Halo. I mean, someone who thought that maybe Halo 4 and Halo 5 specifically were kind of middling entries in the franchise, I thought this was a throwback to original Halo, like the Bungie era, where, you know, you're getting this very focused central story of Master Chief's journey, trying to find Cortana, and it's jumping off right off of Halo 5. But
yeah,
overall, I thought this was, you know, it brought me back to Halo 2 days.
Absolutely. It felt so good to follow Chief's story and where he was heading in the direction. And once again, like, they really elevated, they being 343, elevated this whole campaign to another level. By the time I wrapped this up, I was blown away. Now, how they left the ending, well, we'll let you guys figure that out for yourself. But at the end of it, I was overexcited and can't wait to see what happens after all of this has kind of been taken care of and where 343 takes us next. The story campaign was one of the best I think I've played this year. It's too bad that Halo launches now and just misses the Video Game Awards, because it would be up there for Game of the Year.
I agree. I think what we see here in Halo Infinite is a very vulnerable story of Master Chief. He's ripped apart from everyone that he trusts, right?
Yeah.
No Cortana, no blue team, and he's kind of pitched together with this ragtag group of Echo 213, the pilot that we've seen in trailers, and then Weapon, this new AI character. And it's a very human story. Like, you get awesome moments from Steve Downes, you know, voicing Master Chief, but because you don't see his face, it's all emotive, like it's all through his voice acting and his physical expressions. You don't see his face, so I had some great moments throughout this campaign because of the character interactions.
Let's go.
Let's go. What? There?
Siempre hay algo contigo. Déjame en paz, por favor.
Well, Steve, when we head into an open world, we're kind of left with looking for what to do. Not always are we focused on the campaign, and that's what 343 has brought this time, is a lot more things to do. How have you been keeping busy?
Well, I think one of the biggest focal points of the open world are these FOBs, these bases that you can kind of take away from the Banished. And once you do, it basically just opens up this beacon so you can see all the remaining activities and collectibles in this small area. So you can go through the map and kind of parse through and pick the different activities that you want. You've got like high value targets, these like mid-tier boss kind of enemies. You can also save UNSC soldiers from being captives. And then you also have like audio logs, upgrade skill points and stuff like that you can find. And truthfully, I had a lot of fun going through it. It is very in line with Halo. It's not really changing up the game too much. It's just giving you added content to go through.
No, absolutely. It did give me a touch of that Far Cry, right? Where you take over the base and you kind of make it your own. And then from there, you're able to grab, you know, new wheels, new set of wheels, however you want to traverse the area, new guns, new mechanics that way. They also have little like gear boxes out there that allow you to get gear towards the multiplayer side of things, which I thought was an interesting take to combine both one with the other, especially since they've kind of really separated them this time around. So to see that come around too has been absolutely a welcome addition. One of my perks though, I think, we're finding the audio logs, listening in to getting some of the backstories of some of the soldiers that have been left behind. have been really caught me off guard. They're really touching at moments, Steve.
No, I agree. One of the best things that they do with the audio logs is allow you to continue playing versus having to sit there in a menu while it plays out. Like, that's such a huge bonus. That's just a personal gripe of mine. Don't ever do that. Allow me to, progress through the game as it's playing. So props to 343 for doing it right and making me actually, want to go out and find them. Because like you said, you do get these audio logs from the UNSC side, but also the Banished as well. So you're seeing these two dynamically different opposing sides, and getting a little more context as to what Master Chief is even doing.
Ready for liberation. The UNSC suffered through a lot on this ring.
Steve, why don't we wrap this up? This has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for hanging out with me today. What do you score in Halo Infinite's campaign?
I'll give it a solid 8. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was a return to form, back to the days that I really cherished the Halo franchise, and it brought new elements like the grapple shot, the open world elements, and wrapped it up in a very compelling story.
That's awesome. I'm a little bit further ahead of you. I thought this was an absolute masterpiece. This is Halo where I want to see it go to the future. For me, I'm there with a 9. This is Halo's return to form. 343 Industries brings the Halo Infinite campaign to a new generation with emotional storytelling that kept us captivated from the beginning to the end. A fully realized open world with verticality like never before, and the grapple shot is a game changer. Welcome to the next generation of Halo.
Everyone trying to kill you?
It kind of seems like it.
We haven't talked about Fall Guys in a little bit, and honestly there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about with Fall Guys other than just their regular updates and some of the stuff they've been rolling out. But one of the things we've kind of pushed off to the side for a little bit is, when is Fall Guys coming to Xbox and Nintendo Switch? I mean, this is the style of game that just fits these consoles. It's just one of those games that should be on all the platforms and be able to play with your friends on other platforms. And that's just something that isn't happening right now, unfortunately. We're not going to be getting the Xbox or Nintendo Switch ports till maybe sometime next year. Mediatonic has said in a recent blog post that we're going to be getting some information about the development of these ports in 2022, but that's it. We're not getting any solid dates on anything. And that is a little frustrating because honestly, this is a game that needs to be on all platforms. The player base that would open up to would probably have a huge second wave of incoming players, very similar to how big this game was when it originally launched, because this game is still a ton of fun. It's super fun to play with your friends, but unfortunately right now it's only on PS4 and PC. They have just added some cross progression, which is awesome, in a newer update, which is great, and that's hopefully some foreshadowing into when we do get these Xbox and Nintendo Switch ports. We're going to have cross progression throughout, which is something I think that is essential for these battle royale games, especially when they're on all platforms. So I'm not saying Mediatonic isn't working hard on it, because you know what, they have said it is their #1 priority, but it's just one of those things where it'd be nicer to see sooner than later, and they've just been kind of pushing off and pushing off. It's starting to get just slightly frustrating, wondering when this is actually going to happen, because this game's too much fun to avoid. Let's get it on all the platforms as soon as possible, Mediatonic. Please, please, please.
Alright, so Fallout 76 has finally dropped Season 7, and we have a whole bunch of new stuff coming in the near future, and a whole bunch of stuff that has dropped right now. So to get right into it, of course, we have a whole new scoreboard. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with how Fallout 76 works each season, they basically provide you a battle pass, which is their scoreboard, and it's completely free. This aspect of the scoreboard I've always enjoyed. Even when you get to level 100, you can go beyond that and they still give you constant rewards that are good for high level players. So in addition to a new scoreboard, we have new allies, we have new camp items, a whole ton of stuff available to us right now. The new allies seem pretty great, and the theme of this season is Zorbo's Revenge. And I guess this is kind of a continuation from last season, which was all about the Unstoppables, the good guys. So to see the theme kind of take a 180, I'm actually quite interested. The power armor that you get near the end of the scoreboard looks pretty cool, and I'm one for collecting power armor, so this is definitely gonna make me want to grind this one out. So in addition to all the content that we have available to us right now, they gave us a bit of a roadmap for the future, and it looks like the season is gonna last to around the end of March. So this gives us lots of time to grind out this scoreboard, and you know, there's gonna be a couple things given to us in February and in January and at the start of March to kind of keep that spark going. So I'm quite eager to get back into the world of Fallout 76. I kind of stopped for a few weeks because I completed my scoreboard, and then there were all these incredible multiplayer games given to us like Halo, COD, even Battlefield, I could say. So guys, let me know if you are all playing Fallout 76 still, or if this is a game you've kind of been weary of. This is a great game that's quite accessible through Game Pass both on PC and Xbox, so I definitely suggest you check this one out if you haven't already.
In a recent report by Bloomberg, it looks like Sony PlayStation is coming out with a brand new subscription service in spring 2022 named Spartacus, and this is to go against Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass. Now at the moment, all we know about Spartacus is it's going to be a 3-tier subscription service. Tier 1 would offer the current PlayStation Plus perks, with free online multiplayer as well as a couple of free games every month. Another would include a catalogue of PlayStation 4 and eventually PlayStation 5 games. And the third tier would have extended demos, game streaming and a library of classic PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 and PSP games. Now this is a very smart move by Sony PlayStation, and some people may wonder why it may have taken so long to get this far, considering Xbox Game Pass came out in June 2017. There's still no words on how much they're going to charge for each tier, but I'm sure whatever PlayStation charge, people will pay it.
Well, this week I'm Cosmonaut Nate in Heavenly Bodies. So this week I got my hands on Heavenly Bodies on Steam, and I can say that I had a pretty awesome time, a hilarious time, and a frustrating time, but overall a sweet, solid experience is what Heavenly Bodies will bring. This game is all about physics. You are set out in space in the 1970s as a cosmonaut, and all you are doing is completing different tasks on a space station, and sometimes you go out of the space station and off of the space station, making this game bring all sorts of variety in its gameplay. You push, pull, and twist your way through an increasingly precarious range of physically simulated scenarios where with zero gravity, nothing is still, secure, or simple. And this is definitely where the game shines. The gameplay is hilarious. Your character floating through space, you're going to find at the beginning of this game, is quite frustrating to wrap your mind around with the whole controller scheme. You have the ability to play with mouse and keyboard. They recommend a controller. I dabbled a little bit with the mouse and keys, and it's just, it was a little confusing for me. So I stuck to the controller, and I can say confidently that it is definitely a solid experience. So while you're gliding through corridors and clinging onto walls, you're completing tasks, and these tasks have quite the variety to them. I mean, each mission offers a different sort of setting, so you're not looking at the same thing with each mission, and each task at hand is quite different. And some of them, again, you're gonna sit there and just laugh at yourself while you're trying to control these things with this physics-based mechanics that are implemented heavily in this game. And a nice feature that I always like to see is that there are collectibles. Unlike something like Assassin's Creed where you just go and grab the feather and then you're done with it, you actually have to grab this collectible and then bring it back to the starting point or the ending point of the mission. And what's the best feature about this that I couldn't unfortunately dabble with is there's couch co-op. You can complete this entire game with your friend locally, and I think this would just make this experience that much more ridiculous, because while you're playing solo, there's not too much audio to kind of drive you through it. Like while you're playing Minecraft or Skyrim, the audio just really kind of keeps you wanting to explore. Where this game, you're just kind of in space and it's kind of quiet. But if you had your friend there laughing with you while you're trying to do these ridiculous tasks, it would just add that much more excitement. The last thing I'm going to touch up on is, of course, performance and graphics. I'm playing on a lower end PC, and I had 0 crashes and 0 issues with my entire time playing this. Graphically, the game looks pretty good. If I was playing on high-end graphics, you would get the nice little lighting with this kind of fun graphic style that they chose. So ultimately, I mean, this game, guys, is a wicked experience if you are into ragdoll physics-based games. Because if you're not, you might just want to pull your hair out of your head, because there's quite a learning curve to this style game. So if I'm going to have to score this one, well, I think the developers did a spectacular job, especially with the ability to play co-op, which I wish I would have gotten my hands on to do. But I have to give this one an 8. This game is a solid experience for all those ragdoll physics-based lovers. Heavenly Bodies is a hilarious ragdoll physics-based game with one key element: zero gravity. This escalates the experience to a whole new level, especially with the capability to play co-op.
That'll wrap up today's episode. Thank you, of course, for hanging out with us. And as always, you can be a part of our show by going to insidethegame.ca or hitting us up in Discord, where there you can submit your clip and be the highlight of the week. Now, we got to check out Benny7 as he shows us a little glitch in Red Dead Online. Crip's just hanging around, I guess. Until next week, everybody, thank you again, and we'll see you inside the game.